Hello, dear friends. Today we continue our acquaintance with the surprisingly candid and detailed memoirs of the Wehrmacht general. Don't forget to rate the video, and let's get started. November 15th. Letter to his wife. It has been a difficult few days, and it is not over yet. Our new army, led by Guderian, forced us, despite our objections, to participate in an operation that initially went quite well. But in the end, it stalled due to a lack of strength and support from our neighbors, just as we had predicted, and gradually turned into a failure that cost us heavy losses. In 4 days, we lost 1,000 men, 790 killed or wounded, 180 with frostbite. For several days we had temperatures of -20 degrees Celsius and an icy wind that was as sharp as needles. Now it has warmed up to only -8 to -10 degrees Celsius, but it is always windy. Fighting in such conditions, lying on the ground for hours under enemy fire without the possibility of digging in, is almost beyond human capabilities. But that's how it is here. My warm clothes still haven't arrived. I was told that they are stuck on the road before Kaluga. I can only hope that they will arrive in the foreseeable future. For now, I make do by wearing woolen clothes and long johns on top of each other. I don't have a single pair of woolen long johns. I don't know where they went. I brought them to Berlin on Trinity Sunday. I got myself a pair of Russian felt boots. They keep my feet warm up to my knees, but they don't fit well and are uncomfortable to walk in. Could you send me some special studs from Freiburg that can be stuck into the soles to prevent slipping on ice? I have them on one pair of boots, but not on the other. November 19th. Report to the family. 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 19 degrees below zero. These are the temperatures we have had to work and fight in since November 8th. The thermometer fluctuates between these two numbers. The changes in temperature are barely noticeable, unlike the wind. Sometimes there is no wind at all. Sometimes an icy north or northeast wind blows, and then it is impossible to be outside. It stings like needles and blows through winter helmets and gloves. Your eyes water so much that you can hardly see anything. And it was in these conditions, at -20 degrees and in such wind, that our boys lay for hours on end for 2 long days on the completely frozen ground, under enemy mortar and machine gun fire, standing out against the white blanket of snow, just like those partridges in France last year. Only half of them had winter helmets and gloves, and all of them wore only our German greatcoats and old thin trousers. Opposite them lay a Russian in a quilted uniform, in jackets and trousers that looked like a quilted blanket, in round warm fur hats with ear flaps. Simply unheard of combat conditions. And on top of that, we are now reaping the full benefits of supply disruptions at the beginning of the month. For 8 to 10 days now, there has been no tea, coffee, cigarettes, or cigars on the front line, not to mention alcohol, and often no bread either. There was so little ammunition that in some places we had nothing to shoot with. It is almost a miracle that we only had 180 frostbite cases that had to be taken to the hospital. Wisely spent the time that we were forced to stand idle, or could only move at a snail's pace. He concentrated all the troops he could muster around Moscow. While at the end of October there was almost no enemy in front of us, and if one did appear, it retreated. On November 10th we encountered a position that was not yet fortified, but well defended. Against our opinion and wishes we were ordered to attack the enemy, even though we had no neighbors on either the left or right, and those who were far away were not ready to support us. Since an attack across snow-covered terrain is extremely difficult and fraught with losses, we moved into position at night. The Russians were sitting in the villages and did not occupy the hills between them because of the severe frost. So we advanced in one go, sometimes meeting no resistance for about 15 kilometers. However, in the villages, the enemy, who had been taken by surprise, defended themselves with surprising vigor. There were very heavy hand-to-hand combats. In some places, everything was over only after noon. So we broke through in the center. There were no more enemies in front of us, and we could have advanced further without a single shot. But the Russians attacked our flanks, and since no one could cover us, there was no one nearby who could join our operation. So we were unable to build on our success. In 5 days, with great effort, we were able to repel the counterattack on our wide, bridgehead-like position. We captured 2,000 prisoners, 24 guns, 6 tanks, and an endless amount of other equipment. But our great success achieved nothing in operational terms. We ourselves lost 800 men. Given the current staffing levels, these losses are unacceptable. As in our direction, so in other places, the Russians are defending a vital section around Moscow, counterattacking, that is, here and there they are advancing with the use of strong units and tanks. On the other hand, we managed to break through in several places. One of the breakthroughs, which is encouraging, threatens Moscow's water supply. And yet, on the whole, we are still too far from the city to expect its imminent fall. At the very least, there will still be heavy fighting when we attack the city, as the enemy is constantly replenishing its forces. The first divisions of the Russian Far Eastern Army have already arrived. I do not know whether the Russians assume that the Japanese will not attack after all, or whether these units have been replaced in the east by fresh recruits over the past few months. They had enough time. Now we can only hope that there won't be much snow. If that happens, our difficulties will increase dramatically, especially for our vaunted motorized units. They have the same problems in terms of supply and mobility. Only infantry and horse-drawn transport are capable of moving here. We are standing in a small village, in modest and crowded huts, next to a completely destroyed church, inside which lies a frozen dead horse. The fields are swarming with fat gray mice scurrying from burrow to burrow. We often see a steel sky and a cold sun, and often beautiful frost. Strange, colorful sunsets often delight our eyes. But the most beautiful thing is the starry sky above us, appearing in all its unimaginable and pure beauty. The stars twinkle and flash like diamonds on black velvet. The local climate, with its dry frost, is good for your health if you wrap up warm. Compared to Germany, November here can only be praised. November in Moscow means glorious sunshine, snow, cold and calm. It's a great place for ice skating and sledding, and the ski slopes are improving. There are no amenities, but the prices are low. Every village has a sauna. Bedbugs, lice, mice, and rats are guaranteed in every house. Bedbugs prefer customers with type O blood. There are large forests not far from us. A continuous stream of Red Army soldiers, left behind as a result of the battle near Vyazma and Bryansk, and wishing to return to their comrades, flows through the forests towards Tula. In groups of 3 to 5 people, they walk along the railroad tracks, staying away from the main roads. When we run into them, they usually avoid combat and only defend themselves as a last resort. For example, 2 kilometers from our headquarters, Division Commander Alexandrov passed by with 400 soldiers, but no one found out about it in time. Most of these Red Army soldiers wear tattered peasant clothes, often over their uniforms. They grow beards, as they have realized that the Germans do not touch old men. Notes with symbols that no one can decipher are sewn into their sheepskin coats, and especially into their hats and quilted trousers. Partisans are doing their thing nearby. Again and again, There are raids on individual vehicles or people, who most often pay for it with their lives. Railroad tracks are blown up. Telephone cables are cut. Only with the help of the local Russian population can these partisans be dealt with. They usually turn them in willingly, because these bandits terrorize them, take their food, and so on. We are constantly fighting against this plague, but it is difficult to end, because the space here is endless, the forests are too vast, and there are too many places to hide. Our interpreter, Lieutenant Bytelepak, himself a Ukrainian from Odessa, fights these partisans with desperate energy, because the Bolsheviks killed his father, liquidated his brother, and sent his mother and sister to Siberia to build roads. Again and again, with field gendarmes and 3 Red Army soldiers, peasant children, loyal to him, he goes on a mission and never returns without shooting or hanging several bandits. But almost always these people meet their death with stoic composure. They do not betray anyone and do not tell anything. During hours of interrogation, they only repeat, "I was following orders." An 18-year-old guy who called himself the commander of the partisan cavalry put a noose around his own neck, shouted, "I am dying for communism," and jumped down. My orderly, who went to the market square to watch the execution, said, "He literally craved death." And there are many such fanatical fighters for communism here. They can often be seen hanging from ropes in villages, but many others are still wandering around. When I ordered that such hanged men be buried at the place chosen for our overnight stay, since such a view from the window, although familiar, was undesirable, the population immediately took off the boots and sheepskin coats from the executed, took them for themselves, and dragged the corpses on ropes to the graves. Such is the local reality. The customs and morals are like those of the 30 Years' War. Only those who have power have rights. I have spent 6.5 years of my life at war, but I have never seen anything like this. Supplies to us are still extremely scarce. In normal times, a train arrives at the Corps every 2 days. In 4 weeks, we have received 2 trains. This means that we are living entirely on local produce. As far as meat and flour are concerned, everything is fine for now. However, the troops have to bake their own bread. There are no vegetables or fruit, except for white cabbage, which is now, of course, frozen through. Potatoes are gradually running out. For the most part, they have not been dug out of the frozen ground. In the area where we are stationed, we will soon eat everything. When the situation recently deteriorated, I was able to organize supplies for the divisions with the help of planes that dropped containers of food by parachute. Thanks to this, we also received a newspaper, albeit an old issue, in which a war correspondent wrote, "The offensive is advancing so rapidly that the headquarters cannot keep up with the troops. Regardless, supplies are running smoothly. It's a pity that we ran out of oil a few weeks ago." November 19th, letter to my wife. 3 days ago, fur items finally arrived, including fur mittens from the Army warehouse. There was also a scarf. I am finally warm enough, so please do not send any more warm clothes, except for woolen underwear and 2 or 3 pairs of woolen socks. You must have the woolen underwear. You probably just forgot to put it in. Buy the socks. I am enclosing my clothing card. Don't waste it. Who knows, we may need it again. We may buy lining for French suits if we are ever given leave. However, I am skeptical about this. So far, no one can say for sure whether the war will continue or whether there will be a break. I very much doubt that we will reach Moscow this winter. If it snows, and it looks like it will tonight, then we will be stuck here. If the fighting continues, there will be no vacation. Then it will all end only in December, and then we will have to prepare for the subsequent positional war. A special question. How to get home in winter conditions? By plane, but what if there is a blizzard? By car, but what if there are snowdrifts? By rail? You can read about how things are going in the attached report, so you'd better get ready to celebrate Christmas without me. Alas, I can't say anything else. I would very much like to give a different answer. Everyone is sick of things here. Everyone would like to go on vacation, because there is no end in sight to the war. It will continue next year as well. Russia has been badly beaten, but it is not dead. If Hartmut goes to the Eastern Front, make sure he has warm clothes. This is no place for child's play. Did you knit him wool socks from the yarn I brought from France for that purpose? Of course not. You are not very caring. If we get a tax refund of 436 marks, it won't be enough to pay the income tax on December 11th. It's 590 marks. In addition, property tax was due on November 11th. Did you pay it? You ask if I want you to send me the newspapers. According to Moja, the Frankfurt newspaper publishes a special compilation of the best articles of the week on Sundays. I would gladly subscribe to it. You can also send me old illustrated newspapers. By the time the daily Frankfurt newspaper arrives here, it will be completely out of date. I would like to ask you to put my war reports in a separate folder, as I want to keep them as memories of the war. You always received the best copies, and it would be a great pity if they were lost after lying in your handbag for weeks. November 21st. Diary entry. While entering Gryaznovo, we witnessed our field gendarmerie finishing off a commissar who had tried to escape. An unpleasant sight for our boys. November 23rd. Diary entry. After the meeting, a memorial service was held for our fallen comrades. Today is All Souls' Day. It is no longer possible to hold a proper church service. Our priest, Lieutenant R., speaks eloquently, but he had difficulty transitioning from the memory of the fallen to All Souls' Day. Then a walk to the dead Russian. The final destination of the route is remarkable. A dead Russian has been lying in the snow there for several weeks, unburied, completely frozen. I must order the local residents to bury him. November 25th. Letter to my wife. The son of Colonel General von Kleist, a pilot who was here with us and has now been transferred with his squadron to Antwerp, will deliver this letter to Germany. Only pilots and people like them are so lucky, but not us. From all this you will see that I do not believe I will be able to come home for Christmas. The fighting is such that there are doubts that it will end by Christmas. The Russians are defending their positions near Moscow with great tenacity, bringing in more and more new units. They are not limiting themselves to defense, but are attacking again and again with the support of tanks and large amounts of artillery. Combined with the weather conditions, this is probably the most difficult test we have ever faced. The prospects for the pre-Christmas holidays are not very bright at the moment. I rule out the possibility of being able to leave under these conditions. You will have to do without me. And traveling around Christmas, as I see it, is associated with enormous difficulties and is hardly possible at all. By this time, at the latest, the snowstorms will begin. It will be impossible to travel by car. The only trains here are unheated freight cars. Flying at this time of year is another matter altogether. So this year, resign yourself to celebrating with the children. Hopefully, both of them. I would much rather be at home than here in this dreadful country and dreadful conditions. I don't have any gifts either. You can't get anything here. I am giving each of the children 50 marks. Dresdner Bank should transfer them to your account in Freiburg. Give it to the children. They can use it to buy whatever they want most. If you know what they want, you can probably add some of your own money and buy them whatever their hearts desire. After being virtually inactive since November 15th, the fighting has flared up again. I would like them to be less intense than the recent ones. But, given the ferocity of the Russians, which I wrote about at the beginning, this is not to be expected. It has been cold all the time, with light snowfall since yesterday. So now the weather is slightly milder, but only since this evening. In the morning, it was minus 14 degrees again. I often wear these Russian felt boots. At least my feet are warm. There is nothing better in this regard. There is nothing more to add. I am very busy preparing for our offensive. It is difficult as we are fighting practically without neighbors and are threatened on both flanks by a danger that is not easy to deal with. The first cases of typhus have been reported in our troops today. November 29th, 1941. Report to my family. I ordered a pair of tall Russian Valenki boots with galoshes to be made for me. All the peasants here wear such shoes. The felt is as thick as the lining of a typewriter. They are so warm that you can hardly sit still in them indoors. They are the best thing I have ever seen for keeping my feet warm. I now wear a round Russian hat made of white sheepskin on my head. It has 2 fur ear flaps tied at the top. They can be lowered and tied under the chin. Everyone says it suits me terribly well. But what matters more to me is that it keeps me warm like nothing else. You have to adapt to local customs, otherwise you won't get very far. 3 days of heavy fighting are behind us. Taking up positions near Alexin, we managed to knock out the cornerstone of the Russian defense south of Moscow. The first day saw the heaviest fighting. On the second day, when the outcome was still unclear, our reconnaissance planes reported that a 15-kilometer-long Russian column was advancing against our flank. The completely exhausted regiments had to repel this attack in the forest, where it was difficult to defend. It was a moment of extreme tension. We had almost stopped the offensive. The report came from 2 different pilots. An hour later, it turned out to be a mistake. We continued the offensive and broke through the defenses. Now the entire Russian front near Tula is under threat. The Russians are fighting with extreme ferocity. Their artillery has caused us heavy losses in some places. They have surrounded themselves with minefields. They have new mines, thin wooden boxes 20 centimeters long, 5 centimeters high and wide. All you have to do is put them in the snow. They have caused us heavy damage. But the worst thing for the infantry was again having to lie for hours on the bare ground, unprotected, under enemy fire. The ground was frozen to a depth of 1 meter. Unable to move, the soldiers were forced to remain in one place for 10 hours. 3 people simply froze to death. In addition, all the villages in the area have been destroyed. The remaining houses are riddled with holes and are in ruins. Today, the battalion spent the night in 4 huts. The horses remained outside, and supplies are not coming through at all. It is simply unheard of what people are going through here. November 30th, 1941. Diary entry. It is now difficult to distinguish between Russians and Germans in their winter uniforms. The Germans simply wear Russian fur hats. That's all for today. If you liked the video, please support it with a like and subscribe to the channel. See you all soon.